Buying annuities, what to watch out for. Hi, this is Friends Talk Financial Planning, and I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel.
Hi, and I'm John Scherer. Bridget and I both run fee-only financial planning practices, and we get together to talk about important things that can help our viewers. And before we get started talking about annuities, Bridget, which is a great topic, I'm really excited, as funny as that sounds, to talk about annuities. I want to remind all the viewers to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. That helps other people find this information, helps us move up in YouTube, and helps other people find this great information. So with that, tell me about annuities. What's been coming up in your client conversations, and what's on your mind today, Bridget?
Well, Jen, what I really want to talk about is the pitfalls and what to really watch out for. So, I generally don't recommend annuities, but I realize that they appeal to people because a lot of people listen to the siren song of, I don't want to run out of money, and this will give me a guaranteed set of income and other features that are with annuities. So I can understand where people that when they really want to just keep it simple, it would appeal to them. So I was really interested in doing the show where we talk about what to watch out for. So what would you say is the number one thing to watch out for when you're thinking about getting an annuity?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to turn it on its head just a little bit and talk about, like, annuities can make some sense and they can be a really good tool, but for a small subset of people. Like, most people don't need and shouldn't really have annuities. So who does it fit for? It's for people that are worried about running out of money in retirement. And of course, everybody's sort of like, well, listen, I don't want to run out of money. But for folks that say, listen, I've got longevity. What if I live in my genes, my family history, right? What if I live to 110? That's a long time to go. And having some of that security from I want a cash flow, just like Social Security is going to be around for as long as I live, right? I'm counting on those payments. That's the place where it really fits. And so who it's not for is people that sort of don't have any money. They're on the low end of things, and geez, I'm going to be living on Social Security. And people that are super on the high end, like, listen, I got enough money, I'm not going to have to worry about this stuff. So it's sort of in that middle ground where you go, hey, I probably got enough money, but golly, we're cutting, and I want to have some of that security from an income standpoint, cash flow in retirement. So that's the place where I really think it fits. Unfortunately, what we see a lot of is that that's not who buys these. It's people who are in their 40s or in their 50s and have enough money and aren't worried about the cash flow thing. It's some of the other investment risk things that get pitched. And it's not like those things can't work, but I'll tell you, it is. I've never seen one that I thought, kind of to your point earlier, I've never recommended an annuity from an accumulation standpoint, from a good investment standpoint. For retirement income in certain circumstances, limited places, sure. But I've just never looked at one objectively and thought, hey, this makes sense. And one of the big things is that it's when you look at an annuity, if you might have one, or if you're considering buying one, is the number of moving parts. Right? There's some of these annuities that every annuity has a mortality and expense charge. If it's a variable annuity, there's the mutual fund charge underneath that. And then there might be a longevity risk charge to it. There's limits on upside, how much you can get. And then there's payout charges on this. And there's all these, and when there's 15 moving parts and every one of them affects all the other ones, like, how can you really, as a consumer, right? How does somebody know what they have? And one of the golden rules that we use anyway with our investment thought process is, if you don't understand what you're buying from an investment standpoint, you shouldn't be buying it. It is not that complicated to be financially successful and secure and safe and all those things. If you don't understand it, that's a giant red flag. So that's one thing is, boy, if you walk away and you can't explain to your spouse or to your neighbor, to your sibling, hey, here's what I'm buying and here's why, and here's all the moving parts, not geez, there's no downside. I want, all the moving parts. If you can't explain that, that's a problem. You can explain, think about this, Bridget, like you can explain, you're buying a CD, right? Explain that to me, explain that to your, somebody that doesn't know anything. You can probably do that rather succinct. Everybody can probably do that rather succinctly, right? Same thing with a mutual fund. Most people these days at least have some working. After listening to you or I talk about it, yeah, geez, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, that's one thing. And I'll tell you the other thing, how do you protect yourself from making it, is how do you think about this is the golden question to ask the person that's, suggesting you buy an annuity is, what is the commission and how much money do you make on this? And with all these other variables, all these things that go into it, right? It can be really confusing, but yet it sounds good. I think there's some possibility. And take a look at what they're making. We see agent commissions at 4%, 5%, 8%. And you go, golly, if the agent's making that kind of percentage, and the insurance company is making money on it, right? They're not selling this at a loss. We had a client that was considering one of these, and it was, boy, I get the first 2% a month of return. It never goes down. And they're going to give me a 5% bonus. If I put $100,000 in, I start earning interest on 105. And we had this conversation about it. I said, okay, so they're giving you $5,000, 5%, and it never goes down. And you get the first 2% each year, like what, 24% a year goes to you before they make any money. And we know the insurance company is making money. Can we agree on that? Yeah. And well, you need to ask the agent. He said, oh, I asked the agent, they make 5%. And so they're paying the agent 5,000. They're giving you 5,000. You get the first 20%. You're like, what's going on here? You go, yeah, that doesn't sound. And you dig into it, and it turns out like, oh yeah, technically that's right. But when you look at some of the clauses and some of the hidden language in that 110-page prospectus, all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, I mean, those words are correct, but that is not what I thought was going to happen with these things. And that's sort of the problem. And a long-winded way of saying, if you know how much the person's making on that, that can be a really great litmus test.
Yeah. And so you're saying 4 or 5% is too high, and 1 or 2% is more reasonable. Is that what you're saying?
Right. You look at, if you can buy a mutual fund, right? You buy the S&P 500 mutual fund. And what is the cost? Like 0.1% or maybe less, right? A financial, an investment person from one of the big brokerage firms, they're charging 1% or 1.25%, something like that. So just for frame of reference, not that those are right or wrong, but you say, okay, hey, ongoing investment costs, and you see this in your client portfolios when new people come to you, 0.25%, 0.5%, 1%, you're talking 3 times that, right? Those things are really red flags. Yeah. And I'll throw one more out there for you too, Bridget, that just popped in my head. It's the surrender charge, right? We just talked to somebody, they just bought an annuity, and there's an 8-year surrender charge where they lose money if they take money out. You can buy an annuity from a company that doesn't charge commissions or doesn't pay commissions to an agent. Vanguard is one. There's no surrender charge. What's the commission and what's the surrender charge, right? And when those things are high, you know that you're the one that's probably paying the price on that, even if you can't figure it out in that thick prospectus.
Right. And so this has been very interesting information. It's interesting how much you have to say about this topic. It's fun. There's a couple things that I would also add from what I've seen with my experience is that one thing is a lot of people have their money in IRAs. Mm-hmm. And so buying an annuity in an IRA, you're losing some of the tax advantages of the annuity. It overlaps with what the tax advantages of an IRA are. So it's very limited when you would actually want to have an annuity in an IRA. That's one thing that's great. Yep. The other thing is that think about the timing and who's coming to who. So I've seen situations where a spouse dies and the investment people immediately, descend upon the living spouse and try to convert them into different types of products. I personally think that is not a good time to make changes, and certainly not to buy an annuity, which is complicated financial instrument.
Yeah. Those are great points. And, so I guess the bottom line is be careful and consider what the sources are like, right? Who's profiting from this? And, and one of the things, talking with a fee-only advisor like Bridget or I, of course, that's a self-serving question, but that's where you get, there are fee-only consultants that do, that are, we know a couple of actuaries that do this work, that all they do is annuity and insurance work and can give you some independent advice. There's places that you can find those sort of things. With that, hopefully there's some good tips there for folks. It's probably a good time to wrap things up.
Yeah, thanks, John. And we're Friends Talk Financial Planning. Please subscribe. So that helps us a lot. It helps us get more respect from YouTube.
That's right. And Bridget and I are both members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners. If you like the things you hear on our show, go to acplanners.org to find a similar minded advisor in your area. With that, until next time, Bridget.